If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hi everyone, myself Akshay. Okay, so I'm the trainer for this particular MDG technical training course. Okay, so yeah, we'll start the session. Let me share my screen. Let me know once you see my screen.
Yes, Akshay, we are able to see.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I hope everyone from this are from SAP background. Basically, I think from ABAP background. So am I correct, or do anyone are from non-SAP background? So I'll take this silence as yes, everyone are from SAP and ABAP background. Okay, fine. So let's start our topics today. So today we will discuss about the introduction of MDG. So why we need as a MDG and what it all about. Okay, and what we are going to do in MDG in SAP. Okay, so we will be covering all the basics, then the introduction of MDG and architecture of MDG, and then we can get into the different the topics in MDG. Okay, so let's take like in SAP, right? As an ABAPer, when you're working on different SAP modules, so you might have come across like material creation, okay, or else customer creation, or else probably the vendor creation, or we can take business partner creations, or creation or update or any master data creation, right? So can anyone tell how I can create a material in MDG? Sorry, in SAP?
We'll go with the MM01T code and we'll create the material.
Great. Okay, so we go to MM01 and we create a material. Or for changing a material, basically it's a MM02. For display material, MM03. So basically you use the standard SAP provided transaction. So it can be 1, 2, 3, 5, or depends on the activity that you perform. So we use basically this particular transaction. Okay. And similarly for customer or vendor or business partner creations, or we have something called profit centers, cost centers, GL accounts in finance area, right? So we have the different master data. So we use the respective transaction codes to create this particular master data. So all these objects, right, whatever material, customer, vendor, business partner, so we call it as a master data. Okay, when I say master data, so basically you create this particular master data once, and you use this particular master data in the respect to transactional activities. Like I create a material in SAP and I will use this material for my sales order creation, or else I'll use this material to procure this particular material, right? So I'll create a purchasing order, or else goods movement documents. Okay, similarly, customers, vendors also you use this for your transactional activities. You create the master data once, and then you use this particular data for your transactional activities. Okay, so with this one, so when I say what is the definition of your master data, so you create this particular master data once, and then you use this master data for a this data is intended for long-term usage, right? So in the this particular master data. Okay, so whereas you have something called transactional data. So when I say for transactional data, examples are like sales orders, purchase orders, or your invoice documents, or as goods movement documents. So anything like whatever you use these like sales orders, purchase orders, we say these are the transactional activities or transactional data. So the transactional data in nature, basically the lifespan of this particular transactional data is short. You create a sales order, and once the particular goods are delivered and the invoice is posted, basically we close this sales order. Similarly, purchase order, right? It can be probably a 10 days or 20 days or probably for 6 months. But after that, we will close this particular documents, right? So likewise, the definition of master data is you create it once and use it for a long-term duration. Whereas the definition of your transactional data is you create this transactional data, and once the required activity is done, we will close this particular data. Okay. So in MDG, right? So in MDG stands for Master Data Governance. Okay, Master Data Governance, right? So basically in MDG, we deal especially with this particular master data objects. Okay, so in MDG, we deal with the master data, how we can actually create or how we can govern the master data. So we will talk about what is governance and everything. But in MDG, like how you are creating your master data in a traditional way in SAP using the respective transactional codes. So we will actually alternative to this particular process. We use this particular MDG, which actually deals with your master data, whether it can be create or it can be update or it can be anything with respect to master data. We use this particular MDG module, okay, in SAP. Okay, any questions from anyone?
No.
Okay, so at very high level, since everyone from the technical background, right? So at very high level, let's look at what happens when you create a master data using MM01. Okay, so this is your SAP system. Assume that this is your SAP system. Okay, so you have your the transaction MM01 for material creation. And when you create this particular material, right? So usually what you do, you log into the system, enter MM01, okay, and then you choose some industry sector. So let's say, for example, material type. So I'm just using this finished product. So you maintain all the relevant attributes for your master data, select the views that you wanted to maintain here, maintain some attributes, material description, and units. Okay, so you maintain all the relevant data, and what we will do, we will hit this save button. So when you click on this save button, so what happens? This particular data, whatever the data, the material that you are creating, this material data, it gets stored in the backend, your at the tables. So those tables for material master are, let's say for example, Mara, MASI, or else MBEW. So we have MBKE. So we have bunch of tables which stores your master data, material master data. Similarly, if I'm creating a customer, I use the transaction code and the data gets stored into the backend tables, right? So here, as soon as you enter the data and hit the save button, the data directly gets stored into this particular respective tables. Okay, so now with this one, what happens is, let's say for example, some person by mistake he has entered some wrong data, and when you click the save button, okay, so then what happens, the data gets stored into your tables, right? And this data can be, this material can be used for any of the like transactional activities, right? So you don't have any kind of review process or someone who is creating a particular master data in SAP. So once if they have authorization and once they click the save button, the data directly gets stored into your backend tables, and there is no way you can, someone can review or anything. So you will come to know only when someone notice that okay, this material is not required or this data is attribute is not correctly maintained and all that stuff. Then you come and actually correct that particular data using again the respective MM02 transaction code or something. Okay, so now let's take an scenario in between, right from creation and inserting this data into my table, right? In between, if I have another layer where the data will get, instead of directly storing into this one, where the data will get stored into the different layer over here. Let's say, for example, we call it as a something called kind of a staging. Okay, so this is again staging means it's another bunch of tables. So as soon as I enter the data and click the save button, okay, instead of directly storing this data here, if that gets stored into my staging intermediate tables, and on these records, if I provide a way that someone can actually review these particular records, and they say whether this data is correct or not, or they can change, or they can actually do some audit, or they can do some what is it, review process, and finally they say okay, this data is good to go. And at that point of time, if you store this particular data, okay, into these respective tables, okay, so then that way actually we are introducing here a kind of a governance layer in the sense we are adding another layer where which will give you a capability or a flexibility to review the data, and someone says that okay, this data is not a valid data, then they can actually reject that record, or they can discard that changes. Or if someone say okay, this is a correct data, then they will approve the request, then the data gets stored into this one. So basically what we are doing is right from the creation process, and before the data gets stored into your final set of tables, if you add an intermediate layer over here, and you add all your review process on that particular layer, and take a decision whether to create that record into these tables or not. Okay, so that is what actually your MDG deals. That is one of the aspect that where your MDG deals, where it is adding your governance a layer. Okay, so where the we will provide a capability to review your master data, whether it can be create or change or anything, and finally the data gets stored into this one. So with this one, what happens is the record that gets created into this system, every record that you are creating into this system, that has to go through this review process, and only the we call them like the experts, or probably it will be reviewed by the super authorities in the business. And then when you are creating setting up that record into your actual tables, then that way I can say my master, this record is a golden record for me. So this record is already reviewed by some authorities, the relevant authorities, and I have a valid data in my system. Okay, so now with this concept, okay, how I can actually add in my SAP system. Let's say for example, this is your existing SAP system. Let's take this is your existing SAP system, okay, where you have all your respective the transaction codes. I'm just taking example of MM01, and you have bunch of database tables over here. Okay, so now what I will do is I will actually, instead of, I will add a layer, I will add an install an add-on component, nothing but your MDG component over here. Okay, so that means this is my MDG component. On the same system, we are installing one MDG component. Okay, so we are activating this particular MDG component, and then on top of the same existing system, now instead of creating when you actually install this component, it comes with some out of box UIs. Okay, so those UIs, let's say MDG UI, let's say MDG UI. Okay, so instead of using this transaction code, we will use the UI that is provided by MDG for your master data creation. So I'm not going to use this regular SAP GUIT code. Instead of that one, I will use MDG UI. Okay, so to create or to change or to display my master data. And as soon as when I create a master data, so this MDG component by default adds some kind of staging layer. So there will be a staging layer here. Staging layer in the sense it's a bunch of SAP tables only. Okay, so we call it as a staging tables. Okay, so as soon as, let's take a creation process, so you use this particular UI to create your master data, the data gets sit into your this corresponding staging tables, and this will be reviewed by different people. So we will enable some workflows in MDG. So in the workflow, like the person will submit the request, and the data gets sit into the staging tables, and after that this record will be reviewed by some approver, and once he approves this request, then that is the time your data will move from your staging area to your underlying active area tables, or this particular the backend the actual SAP tables, right? So that way your master data, it will follow, like there is a difference, like creating a, the way how you create before MDG, you use this portion. Now with introduction of MDG, you use MDG layer, okay, MDG components to create or to perform any master data updates, and then you move the data to your the actual the backend tables. Okay, at very high level technically, this is what MDG does. Of course, it has a lot of other functionalities and everything which we will learn during this particular entire course, but at very high level to give an overview. So what is MDG? So this is what the MDG. Any questions?
No, we are clear.
Okay, so now let's look at what MDG offers. Okay, so the first thing, as I said, the governance. Okay, so when I say governance, here I'll just give you a typical example. So let's say, for example, you will have a kind of requester in the sense a person. Okay, so who wants to create a master data? So he will open your MDG UI and he will create a material. Okay, so once the requester enter all the data, he will hit the submit button or save button, right? So once he click the submit or save button, okay, so then in the workflow we will insert something called a workflow, MDG workflows. So there the data will be submitted, the request will be submitted to, let's say for example, approver. Okay, so approver, and approver will, he can actually again open the same request and he can review the data. If he feels that this particular data is correct, or else he can actually correct the data, or else he can actually reject that request, so that it will go back to the requester and he will ask the requester to do some additional changes, and finally approver will feels that this record is correct. Okay, so then this record approver will hit approve this request. So once he approves this request, that is the time where the data gets stored into your the actual the tables. That means into whatever the backend ECC tables are there. So this data will get stored into this particular table. So in this workflow, this is one scenario. We will say this activation process. Activation process. Okay, so once this approver click the approve button, then in the backend, which we will insert something called activation process, and as part of the activation process, the record that is already there in your staging table will be moved to your underlying tables. So I just took an example of material master, the same applicable for your customer. You create a customer using that whatever the XK01 or the transaction code, and then the data gets stored into your KNA, the some staging tables for customer master, and then once approver activates the request, that record will be moved to backend your KNA1, KNB1, KNVB, those customer master related tables. Okay, so this is one typical kind of workflows that we use in MDG. But in between, right, between requester and the final approver, you can have a number of levels, like plant level approvers, and just like your finance approver team, or else procurement approver team. So all those things are, you can configure, you can configure in MDG how your workflow should look like. So this entire process, okay, this entire process actually leads to your master data creation or update process. Whereas in before MDG, all you will do is just enter the data and just click save button. So only one person is involved in your traditional way. When you are creating a master data, it's only the one single person who will enter the data and click the save button. Then automatically this record will be available in your the backend MRC tables. But whereas in MDG, if you are creating a master data via MDG process, that means using this particular layer. Okay, ultimately I need the data in my backend table. Whether I will use the regular transaction codes, or I will use MDG layer. Okay, so that depends on our implementation. Okay, but however way you create your master data using MDG or this one, ultimately you need the data into this one. But if you are creating via MDG, you have the flexibility of configuring these kind of workflows where we are basically involving multiple teams or part of your master data creation or update process. So in the traditional way, only one person will go and create the data. Whereas here, let's say the requester can be some person. But when it comes to approvers, usually we will have some senior persons or who is the owner of this particular master data, or plant level experts or finance experts, or else some procurement team experts. So we will add them as a those experts. We will add them as an approver or reviewer roles. So that what happens, these people, they know what attributes that need to be maintained for this particular type of materials or for this particular type of master data, right? So if those people reviews the data, I will always ensure that okay, this record is already reviewed and it's a golden record for me. Okay, so that is one example of the governance flavor. So if you notice the difference here in MDG, if you are creating a master data, we are adding these workflows. Okay, so the governance flavor will come into picture. It's not only these approvers, adding these approvers and everything. We will also write some kind of checks in MDG when I'm creating a master data, right? So we will add some checks. If material type is equal to finished product, okay, so then these are the checks that has to perform. Okay, so technical in the backend, you write some business rules, some checks, okay, which will validate your data. So when my material type is finished product, external material group should be mandatory. I have to fill external material group. So that is one business rule. You are adding one check. Okay. So MDG comes with out of box some ways framework where you can actually add those kind of checks. Okay. Some of the checks, there are different ways that you can add these kind of validations using BRF validations and BADI validations and everything, which we will discuss. So when I say governance, right? So we are like adding an approval process. This is one part of one aspect of your governance. Adding a validations while creating or while updating the master data. This is again one level of another aspect of your governance process. Okay, only the authorized person should allow to create or edit the data. So basically, we are adding authorizations. Okay, authorizations okay, in this process. So this is one aspect of your governance process. And derivations in the sense, let's say when always my business rule says that when I'm creating a customer of external customer or internal customer, right? So the customer account group, I'll be choosing internal customer. So when I select an always an internal customer account group, it has to extend to the default some sales organizations I have. 1001, 1002 are the three default sales organizations. So the business rule says that all the time whenever you create a customer internal of internal type, so this customer should be extended to these three sales organizations. One way is that whoever is creating that, you can ensure that manually they will do that extension. The other way is I can set up a rule in the system that as soon as you select this account group, it should automatically get extended to those sales organizations. So that way I can actually avoid that manual activity. Okay, so that we call it as a derivations. So based on certain things, you automatically system will populate some data, whether it can be plant extensions or it can be some unit of measures or it can be some text or it can be some class characteristics. Okay, so any data that which will automatically populate by the system. Of course, in the backend, you need to configure those derivations. Then at the runtime, so when someone is creating the master data, that rule will get executed and those derivations will happen, right? So that is a systematic derivations. Okay, so this is again one aspect of your governance. So there are, like, let's say for example, once you create this particular master data, this data has to be replicated to automatically, it has to replicate to some target systems. Okay, so that is again one aspect, like, okay, replication process. When I say replication, replicating the data from your MDG system to some target systems. Okay, so all these kind of features are inbuilt in this MDG layer. Okay, so these are the out of box features that comes in MDG. Either some of them you can configure, some of them you can write some logic code in MDG, but you can make use of all these features in MDG. Along with that one, also the change documents in the sense, let's say for example, I created a material today in MDG via using MDG process, and after that, so someone modified this particular material, like they extended to particular plant. That is a again another change process. After that, someone maintained some, they replace the profit center value. So when you create a master data over a period, this data can go for multiple changes by different people. But as a master data solutions, right, I should be able to track all these changes. Let's say in future there might be some auditor, okay, as part of the audit, who maintained this profit center. Originally the value is XYZ, now the value is 123. So who maintained that? So we should have a track of that particular changes, right? So this MDG enable provides you the change documents, where using which you can actually track all the changes of your master data. Every master data, right from creation till today, what are the changes happened for this particular master data, that you can see the complete history. Who changed it, what is the old value, what is the new value, when it got changed. So you can are there any did they maintain any why the reasons why they did these particular changes. So MDG captures all those sort of information. You can collect all that information, which will help you to use during your audits or for some tracking purpose. Okay, so all these features are your you will get as part of MDG. So that's what you can see the governance. When I say governance, so basically it enables all these sort of functionalities, whatever we discussed at very high level. Okay, so that is the governance side of story. Okay, one feature. Now coming back to the next, consistency. Okay, so consistency in the sense, let's say for example, as I said, in MDG it provides all the UI applications, out of box UI applications. Okay, so for material master, SAP provided some UIs, just like how they provided MM01, 02, 03. Similarly, they provided some UIs in material master for MDG UIs. Similarly, for business partner, customer master, for finance objects, cost center, profit center. So all the UIs are already available. Okay, so if you open one UI, okay, so the way how the UI application look like, right? So this is the same for all the objects. Maybe the attributes or field names might be different. Okay, where you can, where the placement of the buttons, save, submit, or approve, reject, those buttons, or you can track the change documents, the placement of change document buttons, or is the workflow placement of the workflow buttons. Okay, so the the look and feel of that UI is consistent across all the objects in MDG. The search applications in MDG, SAP provides some search applications. Okay, so let me quickly show you so that you can visualize it. I'll just pause this sharing for a minute. Let me share it again. So we will discuss more about this. Okay, just try to see like how the let's say for example, you can see here multiple tabs are there. Okay, in this one there is something called material governance. I'm just taking it as an example. So you can look at the UI application over here, with you can see some links over here where you can use this link to search your materials. You can, using this link, you can create a material, you can change a particular material, you can mark for delete. Okay, so there is something called, you can perform mass operations on your master data. Okay, and you can look at the change documents. Okay, you can generate some reports over here with respect to your master data. So this section talks about your data replication from MDG to the target systems. So likewise, you can see this, we call it as a home page. So home page for material master. Okay, similarly, this UI look and feel, right? Similarly, if I go to this customer governance, you can see there is a tab over here, customer governance. So when I click on this customer governance also, the look and feel is same. Here, the same way you have a search customer, you have some the change documents, and you can generate the same kind of reports over here, your data replication. Okay, so just these links will take you to the customer UI, whereas in material governance, it will take you to material related UI applications. Okay, now again, this is a search material. If you click on this search material, it will take you to a search application, material search application. Okay, so here you can search your materials based on different criteria, based on material group, material type. So you can fully configure what attributes you wanted to see over here. Okay, so you can enter the data and you can actually click on search, where it will give you the materials based on your search criteria. So this is your search applications. The same way, if I go to customer also, and from here you can create a new material, you can perform initiate bulk operations, you can look at the change documents for the selected material, you can replicate the material from here. So similarly, the same if you go to the customer governance as well. So the process remains same, search customer. So here you will have a search application for customer master. Okay, it will take, I think it is taking some time. That's fine. But the UI look like the same, where in the top you will have the search parameters. In the down, see, this is your search criteria. When you click on search, it will, based on your search, it will show you the results. And again, from here, you can create a new customer, or you can look at the change documents and everything, right? So the in MDG, right? So if you learn one particular topic, the same topic will be applicable for all the masters, like whether it's a material or business partner, customer, vendor. Okay, so that is what actually this particular consistency says, that across all the domains, the process remains the same. Okay, so whether being it's a UI applications, or being your replication configuration, or your rule configure business rule configurations, your duplicate check configuration, everything remains same. The way you can configure, you can use the same, follow the same steps to achieve that required configuration. So that's where this talks about the consistency. Okay, coming back to consolidation. So in MDG, right? So it has a kind of a subcomponent, call it as, we call it as a MDC, Master Data Consolidation. So what this consolidation talks is, let's say for example, here you have there will, when you act, when I say here consolidation, so it's again there is a sub component in MDG. So when you activate that, so that consolidation component will be activated on the same system. Okay, here what happens, in general, let's say you have multiple source systems. Okay, non-SAP systems, let's say this is one source system, this is again another source system, this is again another source system. Okay, and there is one more source system, one more source system here. Okay, so you, these three source systems, you are getting the data from, let's say from these three source systems. Sometimes what happens is the same master data might be available in same record in the same three systems. I have a customer number, let's say HP customer, right? So for the HP customer, here the customer number is 100. Again, the same HP customer, here I have the number as 101. And because these are the three separate systems, it will generate its own customer number in the respective systems. So here I have another customer number, but your 100, 101 and 102 talks about the same customer. Okay, now when you are actually loading this data into your MDG system, right? So ideally we don't wanted to set up three separate customers in my system, which is a duplicate records. Instead of that one, I wanted to refer one single customer. Let's say uh, uh, the customer number is 1000. HP customer itself, the number is 1000. Okay, so what happens is you can actually load these three records into consolidation layer, which will consolidate and club the three records into one single record, which is where it will generate a number, either 1000. Okay, now this 1000 is linked to this 100, 101, 102. Okay, so likewise you can merge the records using the consolidation component. Okay, so we will talk about more about this consolidation once towards end of this MDG course. Okay, which is the latest one that SAP introduced, this MDC component. We will talk about that towards end of this course. Okay, but this consolidation deals with merging multiple same record from three different or multiple sources into a single record, right? So during that process, SAP follows certain algorithms, okay, to merge the records into one single record. It also come up with some consolidation mass UIs and everything. We will discuss about this topic later. Okay, then coming to integration. A typical MDG system, just like I showed you this from the source side, where you can get the data, MDG can receive the data from multiple sources, and you apply all your governance rules and everything. Ultimately, the data gets it into your the master data tables. And after that, you wanted to replicate this particular data into different target systems. You might be having multiple target systems in your organization. Let's say this is one SAP system, target system, transactional system. This is another transactional system, and this is one more transactional system. Okay, so this is my CRM system, and this is my SRM system, and this is my finance system. Or else you might be having one non-SAP system as well. So we call it as all these are the target systems. Okay, where the transactional activities are happening. Okay, so in this system, these systems needs the master data, just like your CRM, right? You need to have a customers over here. Earlier, before MDG, maybe in the CRM system itself, directly I'm creating the customers over here. But now with the introduction of MDG, I don't create the customers over here. I will create the customers in my MDG system, customers. And these customers, once the data move to this particular, the actual SAP master data tables, I will automatically replicate this customer to the CRM system. Similarly, that way actually you can actually avoid creating the master data in the respective individual systems and have one centralized master data system, and then replicate the data to the respective target systems. Okay, so similarly to the SRM system, you need the suppliers. Suppliers are vendors, right? So then you create those suppliers in your MDG system and then replicate those suppliers to your SRM system. Similarly for finance, I need material master data, I need customer data, I need my supplier data. Okay, so you can replicate your customers, suppliers, everything to finance. So you can actually take a decision. You can configure in such a way that whatever the master data is required to a particular target system, that it has the flexibility where you can configure, okay, to this CRM system, I will only replicate a customer. When there is a material get created, I will replicate the material to this one. But when there is a customer get created in my MDG system, I will replicate the customer to my CRM system as well as my finance system, so that you can completely configure in MDG. Okay, so that's how actually your MDG system can integrate with multiple source systems. With those can be source systems, can be SAP or non-SAP, and it can integrate with target systems as well for the data replication. And those master data will be used for the transactional purposes, right? So this can be again SAP or non-SAP systems. Okay, so that's what actually talks about the integration part. Okay, now flexibility. Okay, so flexibility in the sense, let's say for example, in MDG, what are the master data that I can create as an out of box, right? So as on today, you can use MDG for material master creation. You can use MDG for business partner creations, for customer master, vendor, or supplier master. Okay, then you can use it for profit centers, cost center, cost element, GL account, okay, company code. So these are the finance objects. So all these things are finance objects. this is your business partner, customer, vendor, this is your material master. Okay, so these are the out of box. SAP already provided all the required functionalities to create these master data. Along with that one, there are some third party solutions are also available. So those like in IS retail space, you can create articles. Okay, article master. Okay, so you can also create article master. This comes under IS retail space. And similarly in plant maintenance module, you have something called equipment, functional locations. Then you have bombs. Okay, so likewise you have some objects under plant maintenance module. So these are the solutions available, third party solutions, which you have to take a separate license. But by default out of box, you get all this master data, okay, when you activate your MDG components. Okay, but ultimately overall these are the objects that you can actually govern using MDG as an out of box without doing just by configuring without much developments. You can actually start using the MDG for these master data maintenance. But along with that one, do you think in SAP these are the only master data that are available? No, there might be other masters also. Let's say, for example, employee master, or else let's say, for example, WBS element is one master we can say, or else plants also. So organizations can have their own master data. These are out of the standard which commonly used master data. Along with that one, there are some other objects also, maybe which we can say it's a master data for my organization, right? So then how I can actually govern, let's say plant creation is there. How you create a plant? Usually you go to SPRO configuration and create a plant. But instead of that one, business says that I wanted to govern this plant maintenance as well. Okay, so in that case, there is no out of box solution, but your MDG framework has that flexibility where you can actually develop your own master data as well. It's not only the standard ones. SAP provided these as a out of box objects, but along with that one, you can also create your own masters as well. You can design and develop in such a way that these master data also you can bring into MDG scope. That requires some development and everything. Okay, but that is it's not something not achievable. Your MDG framework supports both the standard objects as well as you can use it for your custom object creation as well. Okay, so that is what actually this talks about, the flexibility. Okay, you can say here it says that you can govern your for your own master data as well. Now coming to the last the feature, data quality. So data quality, one is why we are actually doing all this governance. Okay, why we are having all this approval process, review process and everything. Basically you wanted to have a correct record in your system. Let's say if you don't have a valid address for a particular customer, right? So you cannot reach the customer for your promotional events or for anything. So that way you are losing your business. If your communication is not going to the right person, okay, so then you can maybe that will have an impact on your sales. If you don't know what is your current inventory, how many materials you have, how many materials in the system, if you don't know the your right inventory, it might end up in ordering more and your inventory stock will go up, and that will actually create unnecessary loss to your organization, right? So that means basically, ultimately, the thing is that when you are creating a master data, every attribute that you are populating for your master data should be accurate, right? So your data should your data quality should be up to mark. Without, if, let's say if you didn't capture the proper address when you are creating a customer, you just mentioned only city and country, that when if at all you wanted to communicate to the customer, right, with the city you cannot communicate. You need to have that particular address or his email ID or his mobile number, something like that, so that you can actually reach to that particular customer. So that means this data quality ensures that always when you are creating a master data, all the important attributes are populated correctly in my system. So that way actually you can always have that the right data quality. So to achieve this particular thing, SAP has certain MDG has certain framework where you can actually define certain rules and the derivations and everything. At the same time, you can also measure your data quality. How many materials I have where so and so rules are matching. So if you set up that one and when you run this particular rules, it will show you, okay, out of 100 materials, 90 materials are passing these rules and only 10 materials are not passing these rules. That means your data quality is 90%. When I correct those 10 records, right, then my data, when I run the rule again, this time I will see all 100 records are passing that rule. That means my data quality is correct. You can measure whether it's a 90, you are improved from 90% to 100%. So likewise, SAP has that in MDG, this kind of tools are already included, which we will discuss during the course. But at very high level, you can see these are the important aspects of your master data. So I'll just take a pause, and if there are any questions, we can discuss. So are you clear with all this?
Can can you go to that slide, that Excel sheet?
Yeah, Pratik. Okay.
So what is difference here from the approval process and authorizations?
So, okay, approval authorization is, let's say, for example, when you are creating a material, so to extend this, but first thing is the person should have authorization to create a material. That means just like in your SAP also, you should have an authorization to MM01. If you don't have authorization to MM01, you cannot create a material, right? And after that, once you have a authorization also, at every object level, let's say to extend to a plant this particular materials, a plant level authorizations are required, or sales level authorizations are required to extend a material to a particular sales organizations. So likewise, at every level, it will check whether you have authorizations or not. Only the authorized persons can edit that particular data, or they can actually do that one. So that is what authorizations. Approval is something I will review the data, and if the data is correct, then I will say I'll provide my approval for this particular request.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Akshay.
Yep.
Akshay, Shweta here. Can you explain golden record in short once?
So golden record is okay. So we call that in MDG terminology, or in general in master data terminology. When I say golden record, that means the record which is actually reviewed by all the experts in the system. So that means take this example. Yeah. So requester will log in. Let me show you here. Yeah. I wanted to create a material. Okay, just like how you do it in MM01. So let's take example. I'm just clicking this create material. Okay, so you can see okay, we'll talk about this later, all these CR types and everything during our course. But here now you see here, this is equivalent to your MM01 transaction. Okay, in MDG, your material creation will look like this. Okay, so this, just ignore this part, change request part, and after that, right, so you see here basic data is there. So this is your material number. Here it says these are the important mandatory information. All the attributes that you see under this particular basic data section, this is a combined attributes of your basic data 1 and data 2 view. So you have in MM01, you have two views, basic data 1 and data 2. So all the attributes from this particular list are clubbed into one single place under this basic data. Okay. After this, you can see here the descriptions. So where you can maintain the material descriptions. Okay, so the same descriptions you can also see in additional data section. You can maintain the language and the material description. You can maintain the material description in German language as well. So likewise, you can maintain. So whatever pretty much you see in your MM01 transaction, all this plant view, then you have this trade related, sales related. So you will see all these views over here. Okay, in MDG as well. You can maintain the class data here, characteristics, purchasing related, sales, storage, warehouse management. Then you have something called a plant related. You can maintain the plants over here. So this is how your UI material creation UI look like in MDG. Okay, you can just expand the respective section and you can maintain the relevant data. Now you look at this, there is a huge amount of data over here with respect to material master, right? So as an requester in the sense, a person who is sitting at a particular plant, or some person who got an email or some hard copy that okay, create a material with by taking this particular data. So what happens, the person will get a request, he will actually open this application and he will enter all the relevant data, right? So when he's entering all this particular data, as I said, okay, for all my finished products, FERT finished products, this external material group should be mandatory. So this is mandatory only for finished products, FERT. For other material types, it should be an optional. So that is a one business rule. So likewise, when during your MDG implementation, you might get n number of these kind of rules from business, or they will provide the requirements. You need to translate that into these kind of business rules, and you configure these rules in the back end. Okay. Okay. Once you configure these rules in the back end, what happens is once you enter this data, someone is creating this material and hit enter. In the back end, all the configured rules will get executed. And out of those 100 rules, if one or two rules are not met, then you will get an error message here, hey, maintain this data, this is not correct. And you will correct all the data. And finally, what you do, you submit this request. Once you submit this request, this same request will go to some other approver, and approver, he will open the same UI and he will see all the data, and he can validate what are the changes that are done by that particular person. And once he reviewed that, and once he approved from his side, there might be some another level of approval will be there. Okay, okay, and there also the person will review and approve it, and finally the person will approve that request. That is the time where your data will move from your staging area, from MDG to the actual master data tables. Now, before reaching your data into your Mara Marcy table, right? It has all that review mechanism. You are setting up all this review process for your finished product, and which has been reviewed by 2-level or 3-level persons. That means when the data gets created into your Mara Marcy tables, that means it already gone through all this review process. So you can assure that the data is already reviewed by that particular person, and whatever the data that I have is my correct data. Okay, that record we call it as a golden record.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Akshay, there will be millions of records. So
Yes.
for all that, this approval will happen.
Yeah, good question. So it depends on the business process. Okay, so you are right. In the system, there might be lakhs of records will be there, right? So what happens? All these records might not created in 1 day or 2 day, right? In over a period. Okay, so for some of the materials, what you can do is basically depends on the business says that okay, there is no review process is required. So someone is actually creating the material, it will just directly go for a activation process. That is, we call it as the auto approval scenario. So there is no person. But in this auto approval scenario, you will set up all the rules. The rules will run in the backend, and if the material that you are creating, if that passes all the rules that created in the backend, then it will go for an auto approval. There is no approval required. But if you think that there might be some materials which are not passing through those rules, right? So then those records you will assign it for a approval or some review process. Okay,
Yes.
so those workflows are flexible, you can say depends on that. If there are no errors, go for an auto approval. If there are errors, then route this request to particular approval process. Okay, so likewise you can take a decision. You can configure. We will discuss during our workflow topic how you can configure. So it's not necessary that all the every material that you create it has to go for approval process. Whatever business says, as per business, we will configure the workflows.
I got it, Akshay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any questions from anyone?
Akshay, I have two questions. One is why it is called out-of-box solution, and second is like you shown, right? There are SRM, CRM, other applications, right? So on top of that, can we have MDG? Like you shown in the Excel sheet, right? We have
Yes.
MDG layer, then we have
Yeah.
SCP layer at bottom.
Yeah.
So for individual CRM, SRM application, can we have MDG at top of it also? So
Okay,
these are two
so
questions.
that second question we will talk about today, because after this slide we have something called deployment options. So there I'll explain that on which system I can activate my MDG component. Okay, but to answer your first question, right? What is this out of box? Now you look at this particular UI, whatever the material creation UI. So this is already comes with your MDG. Okay, so you no need to create this UI application. This is already available.
Okay.
Similarly, for your business partner, okay, so you can see for create material or the search material application. So these are already available, comes with your MDG. Similarly, for customer governance also, these UIs are provided as an out-of-box solution. Out-of-box solution in the sense when you install your SAP logistics component, automatically you get MM01, MM02, XK01, XK02.
Right.
Okay, so those are your out of box solution. You no need to build those things. What you can do at max, you might enhance those applications to add your custom attributes or something like that. That comes under your enhancement thing. But as a base, you are already getting, when I say here all these MMBP, all these out of box solution, that means for all these objects SAP provided the UI applications. When I say UI applications, it can be for your search applications, create applications, change applications, display applications, everything your mass applications, everything is provided as a standard. And the corresponding backend staging tables also already created.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we call it as a out of box. But when you take it a plant, business says that okay, I wanted to bring plant creation also into my governance scope. That means
Mhm.
it has to follow the same approach like your approval process and everything, staging area. But for the plant, there is no out of box UI applications and out of box the staging tables, nothing is available. You
Mhm.
need to build, you need to develop those things. Okay,
Okay.
so that's why these we call it as a custom objects. These we call it as a standard objects in MDG terminology.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions from anyone? So everyone able to follow me, right? Or let me know if I'm too fast or if I'm too slow or something like that. Okay. Or is this flow is okay to all of you? Okay, so coming back to the next, right? So as I just said here, there are multiple ways. Ultimately, MDG is one of the add-on component. Okay, in which you need to install this MDG component to start using your MDG functionality. You need to activate the MDG component in one of the SAP system. Okay, so the base, the prerequisite is there should be one SAP ERP system. On top of ERP system, you can activate your MDG component. Okay, it's a single system. Whatever I show over here, one single SAP system. In this SAP system, this is your ERP layer. This is your MDG layer. Similarly, this is your consolidation layer. We will talk about consolidation later. Currently, our focus is on this MDG. Okay, so now there are multiple ways. Okay, when I say in which system I need to activate this MDG component, I can do here it, I can do on this system, or else I can also activate my MDG component here as well. or I can activate on this one as well. So that comes under your deployment option, in which system, which SAP system where you deploy your MDG component. Okay, so now before that, you see the typical MDG architecture is, you in this diagram, it's a central governance. That means you are having a dedicated MDG system, which you will use it only for master data creation, not for any transactional activities. You use this system for only master data creation and then replicate the data to your respective target systems. So this is one approach from MDG point of view. Okay, so here this talks about the consolidation, as I said, where you will have that data from multiple source systems will come to consolidation layer. Here you will apply some consolidation processes. What is that consolidation process? We will talk about that during the consolidation thing. So basically, ultimately at very high level, in consolidation you can actually merge the records. Okay, you can do some deduplication, some other consolidation processes are there, we will discuss this one. So this is only the consolidation point of view. Now there is another hybrid approach which we call, in the same MDG system you can have consolidation MDG component as well as your consolidation component, two components. So just like this. So these are the three different approaches where you can actually have. Here we call it as a hybrid approach, in the sense, in the same MDG system you will run the consolidation processes as well as you will run your governance processes. Governance, we will use it for master data maintenance. Consolidation is to get the data from multiple sources and apply this one. But consolidation is an optional part. It is not a mandatory part. Okay, so if you don't opt for consolidation, still you can get the data from multiple sources directly to MDG. Without this, directly to MDG as well, you can get the data. Okay, so here consolidation is optional, but MDG you can actually activate. So what it says is, you can, in a system you can have an MDG component, you can have consolidation alone without MDG, and in the third picture it shows that where you can have both components in the same system. Okay, so coming back to the next, so business functions, of course this is 9.2 version, but you will have this application, the numbers will get changed with the recent one. 9.2 is the latest one. This is a little bit older one version back, this slide. Okay, but what this talks is, so first in general, to activate your MDG, let's say this is my SAP system. Now I wanted to activate MDG functionality. How do we activate that MDG functionality in any SAP system? So this is the add-on component, just like how you have your SRM, CRM, or else IS retail. All these are the add-on components. So you will have your base layer of SAP. On top of that one, you can actually install or activate your CRM or SRM or any things, right? So in the same way, MDG also you can activate. How to activate your MDG? This is a basis activity, not the MDG technical person. It doesn't come under the MDG technical person scope. Basis will activate these components. So just for your knowledge purpose, where we will do, there is a transaction code called SFW5. SFW5. So where you can see all the business functions. Okay, so once you enter SFW5 transaction, so it gives you a warning message. You can just click on continue. You can see here all the uh, functions are available. Okay, in this one, we need to look at MDG, right? So just search with MDG. In the top. Yeah, you can see all these are MDG related functionalities, business functions. We call it as a business functions. So all these are actually activated in this particular system. There is something called MDG Foundation. We will talk about what is these different business functions. With respect to MDG material, there are some business functions are there. MDG finance related, there are some business functions are there. Similarly for supplier and customer and business partners as well. Okay, BUPA means it's a business partner. Okay, so these business functions are already available. You basis will activate these business functions. Okay, so once they activate all these business functions, then we will say this is my MDG system. You can also look at from the system status. If you go to product version, in the installed products, does it show SAP? Okay, sometimes it will show one row over here. If not, you can see the component versions. There is an MDG application. This is the version. Okay, so you can look at this MDG, what is the current version as well, foundation, and this is the application. Okay, so this is how you can see whether MDG is installed or not in this one, or else you can, if you have access, you can go to SFW5 and you can see this is active version. You can see this bulb symbol, it is on. That means this particular business function is activated. If it is not activated, means it will look like something like this. Okay, so that way you can see whether it is active or not, this business functions. So with this one we can say my MDG is active in this particular system. That is one thing. Okay, after that there are separate business functions are there for foundation. In MDG also they broadly divided into two categories: foundation business functions, application business functions. What is the difference? Foundation means, so MDG foundation. So this is a foundation business function. Okay. So when I say under found, this is one category. The other category is MDG application specific business functions. So in the foundation, irrespective of your master data, there are certain base components are required. That means base elements, base classes, all the required objects are required. So that we call it as a foundation. So all the, when you activate in this particular thing, right? When you activate here foundation, which is a first mandatory one. So first you need to activate this foundation. Okay, so once you activate this particular foundation, okay, so you need to activate all the business functions from foundation, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and up to 13, whatever is the latest. Each business function is SAP released in a particular release, right? You can see with these are the S4 related business functions. If you are on without S4 system, right? If you are on ECC version, this is the latest business function. If you are on S4 system, this is the latest one. Okay, so you need to activate all these foundation business functions. It's not like always you will activate the latest one. You need to activate everything, because each this business function contains the delta changes, not the complete changes. So if you activate this 13 business function, so what SAP included the latest features from 2021 to 2022, only those delta functionality will be available over here. Okay, so with this 12, you will have the delta functionalities from 2020 to 2021. So likewise, each business function contains certain functionalities. So to get the complete thing, you need to activate right from the base. This is the original first one, and after that you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, everything. So when you activate this foundation, the core MDG functionality will be available. That is what it says, the foundation related business functions you need to activate over here, foundation 750. And after this one, there is something called application specific. With respect to material master also, you have some business functions. Similarly, with respect to, those are application specific. With respect to your finance, with respect to your supplier, customer, business partner. So you need to, whatever the master data that you wanted to use in your SAP in your organization. Let's say, for example, I wanted to use only material master for now. Then what you need to do is you need to first activate foundation. Under application, you can just activate material related business functions only. This is mandatory for any object. On top of that one, when it comes to application, if you are using only material, you can just simply activate only material. But if at all I'm using after that I wanted to use customer vendors, then you can activate customer, then supplier, then BUPA, business partner related, all these three business functions. If at all you wanted to activate use finance, then activate finance related. So these are kind of not necessary you need to activate everything in one shot. Depends on your requirements, which master data you are currently governing. You can activate those, or you can activate everything also. There is no harm. But this is which is something like mandatory. So in this diagram, it says that, okay, you have something related to foundation, something related to application specific business functions. To use consolidation also, there is a consolidation related business functions as well. You need to activate those consolidation related. If you don't activate this, you activate only a foundation and application specific, you can only use the MDG features, not the consolidation features. Any question on this? Is this clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is how basically it's actually basis activity. Okay, but just as a for our own knowledge purpose, how I can say, okay, this is my MDG system, this is not an MDG system, then this is how you can actually check if the business functions, the relevant business functions are active, then you can say this is MDG enabled on this system. Okay, so that's the only thing. Now after
this function can be deactivated as well, right? If that doesn't require it.
usually okay, usually these business functions, right, cannot reverse it.
Not
It's not
reversible.
only MDG in
Hmm.
any thing, right? So we should be very careful when you're activating. If at all you
Yeah, that's
wanted
it.
to revert it, basically you need to do a complete refresh of the system and start from
System.
scratch.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, okay, we know I need to activate something called business functions to enable my MDG functionality. For that matter, the same CRM or SRM or all those things also will be activated using the business functions only. Later, SAP released one latest version 2023. Then SAP provides one business function. You need to just activate that business function to make use of those additional new features. That's it. Okay. Now, so we know how to activate enable MDG, but now deployment, when it comes to deployment, in which SAP system I will activate this? Okay, so there are two deployment options we are talking. One is MDG as a hub deployment. Other one is MDG as co-deployment. Okay, so let's take what is hub. So to activate your MDG functionalities, base thing is
Akshay, sorry to disturb. Before going to this topic, many times we are asked, right, on which MDG version you are working on. Okay. So as you said, right, go to the option status, and there you can see 807 component, right? So and here in this T code SFW5, here, right, we can see lot of versions are there, right, for supply
the latest
9.2.
one you need to see. Yeah. So the latest one here is SAP this supply MDG foundation. You can see where is this foundation. Okay, 9.2 is the latest version. 9.2 is the latest version, but these are on HANA. You can say, okay, MDG 9.2. The HANA version is the 2022.
Okay. Okay. If they ask, right, what is the difference between these tools, right? Means, so if it is a HANA, then only it will show this 2022. And if it is
Yes.
ECC, then
So
it will
these
show
will
only.
be, yeah, if you are on a ECC system, right, not on S/4HANA system, only this will be activated till here. These four are not active state. That means not active in the sense it will be like in an inactive mode. This will be usually you'll get a when you put a cursor over here, you'll get to see whether it's active or inactive. You will get a message this is inactive, but somehow it's not coming in this system. So you will actually get to see this will be in inactive mode. Okay. And the other way is if you usually if you go to any project systems in the status, go to this product version in the installed components tab, the installed components tab, here you will get a like MDG 9.2 version. You get that one row for MDG, but in this system it is not showing in this training system. But if you take any proper SAP, the projects that you are working, right, just look at the installed components, you will get to see one row over here.
Okay.
Okay, so that way we can know what is the current version, but the latest version is MDG 9.2.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so
thanks.
yep. Okay, so now we know how to activate and what is the latest version, how to see the versions of MDG and everything. After that, in which system I can activate in my organization, I already have three systems. I already have three SAP systems in my organization. Okay, so this is one, this is another SAP system. This is again another SAP system. I already have these systems in my organization, where I'm using it for my transactional activities. I'm using it for creation of purchase orders, for creation of sales orders, and everything. I'm using these systems. Okay. Now I can also activate my MDG in these systems as well. Okay. But in this MDG as a hub version, hub deployment. Okay. Instead of using these three systems, one of these three systems for my MDG purpose, what I will say is I will take a brand new SAP system, which is copy of either of these three systems. I'll take a brand new system. Okay. Which will I will create a copy of these systems, but I will have my dedicated SAP ECC or S4 system, ECC or S4 system. Okay, on top of this system, I will activate my MDG related business functions. Here I'll activate my MDG related business functions, that foundation, material, and all those things. Okay, so this kind of approach, we call it as a MDG as a hub approach. Hub means you are having altogether a separate centralized master data system. And in this system, you just only create a master data. You don't create any sales orders or anything. It will be just like master data system. And once you create the master data, this data you will replicate to the respective transactional systems. So that means instead of creating the master data in these systems, I will create the master data here. Okay, and I'll replicate the data to this particular target systems. This is one approach, which we call it as a MDG as a hub approach. Okay, so now in MDG as a co-deployment scenario, okay, so here what we will do is you take these systems and your criteria is you should have a base ERP layer. So all these three systems are having my ERP layer. So what I can do is I will activate my MDG in one of the existing system, in one system. Assume that I decided this is my in this system I wanted to use the MDG as well. So here you can activate. Okay, so that means your transactional processes are running in the same system. At the same time, your MDG also running in the same system. That means your master data creation or maintenance, everything will run in the same system. And from here, you can replicate the data to the other two systems. So this approach is also valid. This we call it as a hub. This we call it as a co-deployment. Co-deployment means your MDG is coexisting with one of the existing system, one of the existing transaction system. So that's why we call it as a co-deployment. Here it's a hub. That means we are not touching these existing systems. Instead of that one, I took a brand new system and I activated my MDG. So both are the two different approaches that you can have it. Any of these, you can follow either of these two approaches. Now we need to know what is the pros and cons of each of these approach. Okay, so let's take by looking at these pictures, can someone tell me what is the pros and cons of each of these approaches? If you can think through.
So in the hub system, we can say like the additional costing included because we need to create a different MDG system.
That is perfectly correct.
Maintenance
cost. Okay, additional cost includes you are having initial setup plus your regular maintenance as well. So that everything comes under your costing thing only. It's a one of the drawback over here where here you are not having any separate system. So it's a cost effective, this approach. Any other things that you can actually think of?
advantage will be right as it is separate system. If any right if it is not available or it's not working, it will not impact the other systems. But if it is on a hub, right, if it's down, then it can affect it in co-deployment.
In co-deployment, actually that is correct, the
Vice
point.
versa.
But I will put it in a different way towards end, but your point is valid. Yeah.
But we can take this as a disadvantage in MDG hub system because if the MDG system down, then whole process means transaction system is available, but MDG system is not. So we cannot perform any task. But in the co-deployment system, like if both are on the same system, so if it get down, so the whole process will get stopped, right?
No, in MDG as a hub, right, in the sometimes in the transactional system, we can maintain the data directly if MDG is not working in the right very urgent needs. But in co-deployment, I think it would be difficult.
Okay, so let me add from my side. So your points are valid, all these points. So let me put in a proper manner over here. Okay, so let's take MDG as a co-deployment. One important thing, the reason that always we say MDG has to be installed on top of existing ERP, either here or here. If you look at the down, you have an ERP. Okay, the reason that we are saying that ERP is, what happens is in ERP, let's take this example, right? You all, when you are creating, I'll just show you here itself. If you see, when I do an F4 here, I'll just go to some create material screen. Okay, so here let's look at when you do an F4, it is showing all the material types. So from where these material types are picking up, because in the backend, right, these material types are usually maintained in your SPRO configuration, the backend. It can be material types or material groups, your plants, everything, or unit of measures, whatever, everything you maintain under your SPRO configuration. So usually when you do these configurations, right, your ERP related configurations, logistics related configurations in that particular system, your MDG can reuse that. Okay, that's the reason we are saying MDG should be always on top of ERP, either here or here. Okay, now in this particular system, if you take this example, what happens? Usually you have your MM consultant or SD consultant when there is a new plant or new material type or something like that, right? So they maintain this in this particular system. Okay, so then when you maintain this in this the transactional system, automatically you can reuse when you are creating the material using MDG. If both exist in the same system, ultimately those material types should be available. The configuration should be available over here. So in these systems, the consultant will take care of these configurations, right? So we call this data as a reference master data. When I say reference master data, the data that you use while creating your actual master data, right? Your examples are like your material types or material groups, or else your sales organizations or purchasing organizations, company codes, unit of measures, your currency. Okay, so likewise, when you are creating master data, you use your plants. Okay, so you use all this sort of master data. This is also kind of master data, but this we will say it's my reference master data, right? So this entire thing you will maintain in your SPRO configuration. When you are maintaining something, this kind of thing in SPRO, automatically in MDG you can make use of this because this data is already maintained. Whereas in co-deployment scenario, whereas in hub scenario, usually the consultants or SD consultants will take care of that process over here. Okay, but I mean here in SPRO. Okay, but if you have as a hub scenario, then you need to set up an automatic a process so that whatever the SPRO configurations are maintained over here, that will basically you need to sync to this particular system. Then only in MDG you can make use of that configuration, either via manual activity or via some automatic transport import. This configuration, whatever you do over here, you need to actually set up a process that this will always sync with the data, the reference master data that is available in your respective transaction systems. Okay, so this is an additional activity, whereas here in case of co-deployment, it automatically works because you need to just maintain once. That's it. Then in MDG you can reuse. Whereas here, maintaining over here is not sufficient. Along with that one, you also need to ensure that it has to be maintained here as well. Okay, so that is actually that is an additional headache when you go for a hub scenario. Clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so that is one point. Cost effective and reference master data is not required. Okay, so then the other point is, as I said earlier, in MDG, when you create a master data, initially it gets stored into your staging tables. And once the record get activated or final approver approves, the data will be moved to your underlying actual master data tables, actual DB tables. Okay, so this is an automatic process. This is a moving the data from your staging tables to this one, that will be automatically happen. You don't need to write any logic or anything. Once the final approver approves, the data will be available into this one. Okay, so that means here there is no additional replication is required. The replication is required only to replicate the data from this system to these two target systems. That means you need to configure two replications, one replication to this one, another replication to this one. Okay, so here replication 1 configuration, here replication 2 configuration. You need to just set up the within the same system. You don't need to do any replication, which will automatically taken care, but you need to configure to the n number of target systems. Whereas in hub scenario, right, your data will be available here. Okay, but I need to do a replication configuration to all these three systems. Okay, so replication 1, replication 2, replication 3. That means this is again one additional, of course it's a small activity, but still from the replication point of view, you need to ensure that the data is replicated to all the three target systems, whereas here you need to just take care of two systems. That is also one replication point of view. Also there is one thing actually that advantage goes to this particular co-deployment. But above all this, see, these reference master data, you can set up one-time activity, or else replication, it's a one-time activity, you set up that configuration. So once you set up the process, this will be taken care in hub also. we don't really consider it as a only the cost thing. Customer has to bear that particular additional cost. Okay, but one of the very important point when it comes to the hub versus co-deployment is, so one of the important point is basically what happens is, let's say for example, to activate this MDG version, okay, so the underlying ERP version also should follow certain, it should be up to certain level. Let's say for example, to install your MDG 9.1. Okay, currently you are at 9.1, MDG 9.1. Okay, and this is your EHP, let's say EHP 5 version, EHP 5 version, your underlying one. Okay, now there are certain features SAP introduced in 9.2, the latest version, which I wanted to use in my MDG. So to activate, to move from 9. Upgrade from 9.1 to 9.2 version, SAP says that the underlying EHP component should be EHP, for example, 8. I'm just taking some random number. I don't know the exact latest versions, but assume that it might be a different underlying component should be at a higher level, right? In this case, you need to also, just to upgrade your MDG from 9.1 to 9.2, you need to upgrade your underlying ECC version as well. So this upgrade is a big activity, because there are already smooth running transaction systems are there. If that request comes from this business side for this, from this transactional side, well and good. But just because of MDG, most of these transactional team owners, the business process owners, they don't agree, because there is a risk that something might get break when you're moving from here to here, or else that requires some additional effort, because you need to do all the SPOW adjustments and everything, right, technically, and testing effort is required. After all these things, there might be heavy chances that something will get broke as well. So with that one, you cannot go for an individual upgrade for MDG, and it is tied up to always your underlying transactional system upgrade as well. This is one of the major drawback with respect to co-deployment scenario. Whereas in case of hub scenario, right, I don't care whatever this current, assume that it is EHP 5 only. But to upgrade from 9.1 to 9.2 version, here you can just simply upgrade EHP 5 to EHP 8. There is no transactional processes are running in this particular system, right? So I can actually, I no need to consult. Of course, there is some minimal level of testing is required, but your transactional system version can be lower level. What you are doing is you are upgrading from EHP 5 to EHP 8 here. Okay, so this is, you are the owner of this particular system. Only the MDG business process owner should take a call, right? So there is no dependency with your transactional system upgrades in this hub. So because of this particular point, most of the time we strongly always recommend that go for a hub scenario. Is this point clear to everyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now again another point technically, that because in MDG also you will be running sometimes the bulk updates and everything, so which will occupy your work processes. At the same time, your transactional activities also will be running bulk goods processing or anything invoice processing, right? So that means your work system resources has to be shared across MDG processes and transactional processes. Whereas here, your system, both are two separate systems. You can use exclusively this system work resources for your MDG processes only. So you are splitting that the system, this one, right, into two separate systems. So there is no impact from the system resources point of view also. That is also one of the important point to consider hub as a preferred option for us. Okay, so you can see here these diagrams, hub versus co-deployment. Okay, in the top one, you have a MDG as a separate system and two target systems are there. Whereas in co-deployment, you are using one of these target system for MDG, and you need to just replicate the data to other target system. Okay, so again here it talks about, in case of hub scenario, your configurations, reference master data, you need to sync it to MDG system. Whereas in co-deployment, everything is available one system, so there is no need of doing that sync up over here. Okay, so these are the, I mean, it talks about the same points. Your reference master data synchronization is required. Future flexibility in the sense you can go for an MDG upgrades without having much dependency with your target systems. Okay, so whatever we discussed, it actually talks about the same points. Again, this is a summary of TCO is from the cost effective cost point of view. Okay, so again, there's one question, right? In can I install my MDG on SRM or CRM, those kind of things? Okay, by default, if your MDG is, you also need to look at when you are going for this co-deployment scenario, assume that here in this system, if CRM is already activated, you cannot use this for MDG functionality. Okay, that is the only one thing. Otherwise, all other SRM or even IS utilities, SRM and IS utilities in all other add-ons is, even if those add-ons are also installed, you can actually install your MDG. But what I remember from the last earlier discussion was CRM, you cannot actually on on top of CRM system, you cannot activate MDG. That is the only one point. But ultimately, there is a SAP node that is available, okay, which will tell you that what are the systems that you cannot actually install MDG on what systems. But mostly it's only the CRM. Other systems you can actually activate MDG component in all other systems. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, so if any questions till now? So today we will be looking only the basics and everything. From tomorrow onwards, we will get into the system, and we will also do the create the scenarios in the system. Today, I'll be covering all the basics and all the required stuff that which will helpful for our tomorrow session onwards. So in general, when you are working on MDG, the first question is what is the version you are working, or else whether it's a co-deployment or hub scenario. So these kind of questions usually come when you say I'm working on MDG kind system, or else which master data you are working, MM or BP, or what object you are working.
Yes.
Okay, any questions from anyone? So is this clear till now to everyone?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay, great.
Yes.
So the next important thing that we need to understand the architecture of MDG. What are the things that is available in MDG when you activate your MDG component, right? So what are the things that you get it? So you see here in this particular diagram, the central one is your MDG layer. Okay. On the right hand side, you see the target systems. Left hand, you see some optional parts. Okay, so now these target systems are like where you wanted to replicate the data to the target system. Okay, we'll talk about this left hand side. Now let's focus on this central part in your MDG system. So in every diagram that I'm drawing over here, you will have the underlying should be your ERP thing, right? So that's what here even it says that your underlying should be ERP, and you have the ABAP layer as well. Okay, so by default, when you say ERP, this will be there. So this is your ERP system. On top of this one, you are activate when you activate MDG, this top box, right? You see all these are the different features of MDG. Those will be available. Okay, so out of all these things, you see these gray colored four boxes. Okay, so this talks about your staging tables. In MDG, we talk about the staging tables, right? So staging tables in the sense, basically, this is your typical MDG system. Okay, so where you will have your MDG layer over here. Okay, assume that this is your MDG layer. This is my MDG layer. and this is my ERP layer. Okay, so here I have my all my master data tables, DB tables. Okay, you can say your Mara, Marci, KNA1, KNB1, LFA1, LFB1, all your but triple zero, all those tables. At the same time, here SAP, when you activate your MDG, right, it creates different type of staging tables. For material master, there will be one set of staging tables. For BP, there will be one set of staging tables. For finance, there will be one set of tables. Okay, so likewise, these staging tables also automatically get generated, these tables, staging tables. Okay, when you activate your MDG functionalities, business functions. Okay, so that is what it says. Material, you will have dedicated staging tables. Finance, you have dedicated tables. Business partner, which includes your customers and vendors as well. In MDG, we will call BP, customer, vendor, all these three under one single staging tables. Okay, and along with that one, additionally, there is something called custom objects. Custom object in the sense, these three are the out of box tables, staging tables, and you can create your own custom tables as well in MDG. Why I need these custom tables? To support your custom objects like your plant master or WBS element master or employee master, any other master data which is not comes as out of box object. I wanted to bring that particular object into MDG governance scope. Then you need to SAP provided a framework where you can actually generate the staging tables for your custom object as well. So that's the reason this is a generic one, and these are the specific staging tables created. So this entire thing deals with topic called data model. In MDG, we have a topic called, that is our first topic, which we are going to discuss tomorrow. That is data model, MDG data model. Okay, so when you're saying I'm working on MDG, some people which master you are working, or some people will ask, okay, which data model you are working. Data model means either a material master data model, finance data model. In finance data model, it includes all objects like cost center, profit center, cost element, GL account, everything. Here it includes customer, BP, and vendor. So these four boxes collectively we call it as a data model. That is our first topic in MDG when we in tomorrow's session. Okay, MDG data model. Okay, but that is part of your architecture. You can see this is one of the component in your MDG architecture. On top of this one, you have your user interfaces, work centers. When I say work centers, so this is what your home page. This is a work center where I can look at the request. I can look at my workflow inbox. Okay, request created by me or pending by me, or else I can look at status of some request statuses. So you can use. We will go through this in detail, but this we call it as a work center. So when you activate, so you get the user interfaces for your search applications, for your creation, display, or change, basically master data maintenance. You have all these UI applications. The roles are available, out of box roles. The work centers are available. You already have some for the, you can configure your own workflows. So MDG provided a framework where you can configure your own workflows. This staging is nothing but these boxes. SAP MDG provided a framework where you can configure your business rules, okay, and your change request inboxes, your data quality, all these replication related, key value mapping. So all these we will discuss in detail. Each and every point mentioned over here is a topic for us. So your replication, key mapping, value mapping, we will be covering in data replication part. And this analytics is kind of reporting. Okay. And you have something called change request concept in MDG. And there are such applications are also there. Models are also there, and your UI framework. So all these are your MDG. We will be discussing each and every component that highlighted over here. Okay, and how you will access your UI or MDG via NWBC, NetWeaver Business Client. There are two ways you can access your master data that is available in MDG. One is using Fury apps. The other one is using NWBC, NetWeaver Business Client. So how you can actually access? You can actually go to the transaction code is NWBC. When you enter this NWBC, it will open up. You can see here this kind of link will get opened. You can, these are the different roles, or as directly you can actually click on this NWBC, the top link, which will take you to the home. You can see here different tabs. One is material governance homepage is there, customer governance is there. Okay, so likewise you can see all contract account governance is there. Okay, so likewise you can see all the different master data governance home pages over here. Depends on the rows that you have. Okay, so this is about the MDG architecture. So here you see all the individual components within MDG, which we are going to discuss. Okay, so if I open this, where is this? The topics. Data model deals with your all the staging tables, staging area for every master data. Okay, and after that we will be talking about the UI, so the UI applications. Then in the process modeling topic, we will be discussing how I can actually enable the governance for okay, how we can create the workflows. It covers basically your workflows, enabling the governance. While enabling the governance, you might have come across like, okay, certain attributes I need to keep it hide at the requester level. Some sensitive information I need to display it only to the approvers. So all that sort of configurations you can actually do under the process modeling. In data quality and such topic, we will be discussing how we can configure duplicate checks, and you can how we can actually configure the business rules, validations and derivations, and how you can actually configure your search applications. And data replication topic, we will be dealing how you can actually configure the replications from source to MDG as well as MDG to the target systems. And key value mapping also part of your data replication. Data import framework, how you can load the data into your MDG systems. Technically, what are the MDG APIs are available, some code snippets, everything we will be discussing. The roles and consolidation and DQM topic. Okay, in all these topics, there are SAP provides certain baddies, everything. So we will be discussing it at a particular topic. What are the baddies are available, and what is the significance, what is a sample piece of code that you can actually make use of. So all those things we will be discussing the technical details while discussing each and every topic. So that is what the complete our course for next 3 weeks. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, if no questions, so the next slide, right? You can see here all the out-of-box objects. As I said, material master is already covered as an out-of-box object, and supplier master, customer master, and business partner is covered. And finance objects are also in out-of-box. You can get it. Similarly, along with that one, there is something called article master. We call this module as the RFM, retail and fashion management, where we can actually create articles. So that is also third-party solution available. EAM, under EAM, enterprise asset management. So equipment, functional locations, your bombs, everything will be covered. Okay, so the concepts remain same. Whatever we discuss, all the workflows, UI applications, everything, the concept remains same for all these objects. Okay, so we will be discussing only that each and everything over here. The baddies, what are the baddies are available, right? So those baddies are again common across all these objects. So if you know for one object, so rest all is same for the all other objects as well. The same concepts you can apply. If I know how to create a workflow for a material, right, you can apply the same thing for your customer or business partner or vendor or any object. That we will see. We will discuss those when we are talking about these individual topics. But these are the out-of-box objects that are available. Okay. Yeah.
So Akshay, so as we already discussed that there is a provision for the custom solution as well. So
Yes.
in that scenario, we have to design the UI part as well when we are
Exactly.
going for any custom
That
solution.
also we will be discussing.
Okay.
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 So we will cover how we can create a custom object from scratch in MDG. That will
Mhm.
cover how you can actually that will helpful actually when you are designing your data model and everything, right? Because in
Mhm.
the standard material master already SAP provided the data model. So
Right.
I can explain at max how you can include a custom attributes. But more
Mhm.
than that one, when you start creating your own staging tables, the configuration from scratch for a custom object, right? That will be easy for you to follow the enhancements later.
Okay.
So I will be covering, in fact, we will start with the custom models only,
Mhm.
especially for the data model and UI part, how you can create your custom UI application in MDG without writing a single line of code, how I can create from scratch an UI application. So if you know how to create a UI application from scratch, after that, you will easily, if I ask you to enhance, right? Let's say, for example, where is that? Material master. Where is this? Okay, so if you know how to create a similar UI, that just now I showed you that material creation UI, right? The
Mhm.
same way how you can create a similar kind of UI from scratch, then it will be easy for you to enhance this particular standard UI. This is the out-of-box standard UI delivered by SAP, just like your MM01. But we will create in this course, we will create from scratch this kind of UI application. Then it will be easy for you to just simply add a one or two custom attributes on this UI application. Okay,
Right.
so I'll cover both custom objects as well as how we can enhance the standard objects.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Any other questions? Okay. So that's all about the basics overview, MDG and architecture overview, and we talked about the deployment options, everything. Okay. So after that, our first topic is data model. Data model basically deals with your staging tables, the complete staging area. So staging area is a temporary storage space where when you're creating a master data, okay, when you're creating a master data, that initially the record will get inserted into the staging table. So just like, okay, so here you have this staging area, right? So there is a person, this is your MDG UI application, MDG UI, material creation UI. Okay, so using this application, when you create a material, then and when you click on submit button, initially this data will get stored into your corresponding staging area, the specific staging tables. It will get stored into this one. Okay, and the record that exists in the staging table is a temporary we call this as a temporary area. The data will be available over here for a shorter duration. That means once the request gets approved, right, the record from your staging area will be moved to your underlying actual master data tables. That is nothing but Mara, and the record that is there over here, it will get deleted. So this record will get deleted and that record will be moved to this one. Okay, so that's the reason we will say this is a temporary area where the data will be there temporarily, and once you take some action, either you approve the record or reject the record, right? Even if you reject the record also, or if you wanted to discard these particular changes, the data will be removed from the staging area. Nothing will move to your underlying active area. Okay, so this we call it as a staging area. This area we call it as a active area, because we always use this word. Active area means where the active records are available over here. Staging area means where the inactive records. Here this is inactive area. Inactive area means the record is undergoing for some changes. Active area means this is the one. So the records that are there in my active area, this I can use for my transactional purposes. I cannot use this record for my transactional purposes. Okay, so now in data model topic, we will be completely dealing with this particular staging area and all, how we can create our own staging areas, everything. Because for the standard objects, already the staging areas, staging tables are already defined. Okay, but we will take one use case tomorrow and we will discuss how actually we can create from scratch that particular staging tables for that particular custom object. Okay, but before going into this thing, right? So just remember this area we call it as an inactive area or staging area, and all the records that exist in this particular we call it as an inactive records. And this area we call it as an active area. All the records that exist in this particular area we call it as the active records. And this records your replication, your data replication, right? You are replicating the data to MDG to this particular target system. That replication happens from these tables, that it will take up the records that exist from this active area, and that record will be moved to your target systems. Okay, any questions?
Akshay, as you said that even if approved or rejected, like cancelled that particular update, that will getting resolved like deleted from the staging area. So we
Yes.
don't have any logs for the rejected materials, right? In the case of material master, so in we don't get any log that why that has been rejected or something in the system once it's rejected.
Okay, so when you are rejecting a request, we will actually capture something called the rejection reasons or some nodes. That is at
Mhm.
the different level, and you can track that one every time. You can
Okay.
track that one. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's say for example, I'm creating a material. The material is screw is my material. Okay, for
Mhm.
this for the creation, right? You created one request one for the creation, which is
Mhm.
approved. Okay, so this request got approved. That means the data is available in my tables. And after that, I created another request to extend this material to particular plants. Okay,
Mhm.
so then this request also approved. That means all the plant extensions happens in this, the changes will be moved over here. Then I created another third request. Okay, and this request is to change the unit of measure. Okay, but this
Mhm.
request got rejected, right? So when this request got rejected, I mean the record from your staging tables will get deleted. That is fine. But when I open this material and when I see all the changes happened for this one, right, or all the requests that are created for this one till today, I will get to see all these requests. In this
Mhm.
request, I will see some of them are already approved, some of them is rejected. Now, when I open this request, I will see the status as rejected. There might be some notes why this request got rejected, what is the reason. So those we will be you can see that information. It's not like something you don't have that information. You have that
Mhm.
information.
Okay. When we are creating some material, so it's a lengthy process, like 20, 30 fields has to be updated, but somehow users missed to add certain
Mm.
fields, and because of that missing part, that request got rejected. So we can't use the same request, right? Again, the user has to
Actually, yeah.
create, right?
Yeah, no, in the workflow, what
Mhm.
happens is in the workflow, let's say, for example, requester submitted the request.
Mhm.
It went to approver, right? Approver reviewed that and he see some important information is missing. Then what he can do, he can actually reject this request so that it will go back to the requester to correct the data.
Okay.
Okay, so rejection means there are two ways. Here, when I say rejection means I wanted to send this request back to this requester. The other
Right.
one is discard or
Discard.
withdraw,
Mhm.
discard or withdraw. So in this process, what happens is you will approver can discard, or else you reject this request. Requester can have the option to discard these changes. That means at the discard time, the data will be deleted from your staging table.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to know. That. So we have a provision.
Yeah, we have that provision. All this we will be discussing in detail in the workflows. What are the options? You can provide the discard option at approver level. You can provide the discard option at the requester level anytime. So this is completely fully configurable as per our requirements. We can configure that.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay. Okay, fine. So this is one, and let's look at there is a one topic before starting in the data model itself. We have something called flex versus reuse. There is a concept called reuse concept. Flex versus reuse, the storage modes. Okay, so what is this flex versus reuse? What we are discussing till now, let's say user will log into UI and he will actually maintain the data, and once he submit the request, the data will get stored in.
Sorry to interrupt, one question. So these
Yeah,
staging
please.
tables are at the MDG UI level only. So can we use it at the ERP level for any
No,
right programming or something, right?
no,
And
no. No, we don't actually use this because this data, we never know when the data will be available and when the data will be deleted from this one. It's a completely for MDG processes only. We will use these staging tables. At ERP level, when you're writing some report or some program, right? Usually we don't use this one, or else at ERP level, maybe if you're generating some reports just to see how many records are inactive or how many are active or something like that, you can actually you can use this for only for read purpose, that too via APS. You cannot actually directly access this, read the data from the staging tables directly. So there are certain APIs are available. Using that API, we will read that. Just like you have your material data you wanted to read. One way is you can fire a select statement from Mara table. The other way is I can call a BAPI underscore material get by passing the material number. When I call that BAPI, using the BAPI, it will give me the complete material data, sales data, plant data, everything I can get it. So the same way, we always strongly recommend to use the MDG APIs to read the data from your staging. So your point is valid. Maybe for some requirements, you wanted to send some notifications to some person and you wanted to read the data. So you can read this data for using the APIs. That is possible, but only for the reporting purpose. But based on this data, you wanted to take some decisions, that is not recommended.
okay, got it.
Okay,
So
fine. Now I'll just introduce this. What is this flex versus reuse in data model? The first topic that we are going to discuss is flex versus reuse. Okay, so this flex versus the way how you store the data into the staging table, that actually matters. Okay, so what we discussed first, user will log into UI and he will submit the request. Then the data gets stored into your staging table. And once the approver approves, the data will approver means the final approver approves. At the last stage, we call it as an activation process. During that time, the record will be moved from staging table to your Mara table. That means your active here, this inactive record, right? The inactive record will turn into active. When I say it will turn into active, means that record will be moved from your staging area to your active area table, and the inactive record will be deleted. So you will have only one copy of the record, that too in Mara table or active area. This process we call it as a reuse. That means here you are reusing to store your active records. You are reusing your the existing SAP database tables to store your active records. So that is what this reuse concept. Whatever we discuss, that is a reuse mode concept. That means user will create, initially the data gets stored into a staging area until all the approvals are completed, all the review process, validations, derivations, everything will happen on your inactive record. And once finally final approver approves, then we will initiate a process, something called activation process. At the time of activation, your inactive record will turn into active record, and that active record will be moved to this particular table. Okay, so and the inactive record will be deleted from here. This process we call it as a reuse process. Any questions on this? Okay. So now what is flex? Flex means user will log into MDG, he create a master data, okay, and the data gets stored into your staging table. That means your inactive record will be there in your staging table, okay. After that, once all the approvers are approved, and at the time of data activation, your active record also will get stored into your staging table only. It won't move to your underlying active areas. So initially, let's say you created a profit center. Let's say PC01. This is my inactive record. The final approver approved this record. Okay, so then what happens in the same staging table, my active record will be stored. That means the inactive record in the staging table will turn into active. It automatically, you see, inactive or active means there is an indicator, there is a flag actually. Okay, so there is a flag, and initially inactive means the flag will be 0. When you say active, that means this flag will turn from 0 to 1. I will show you in the system tomorrow. Okay, so if you see here it is 1, that means it's an active record. If you see it is a 0, this is the inactive record. That's it. Okay, SAP provided these two type of modes. In one mode, reuse mode, your inactive record will store in staging area. One, at the time of activation, the inactive record will be deleted and it will be pushed to your underlying one active area tables. In case of flex mode, inactive record gets stored into staging tables, but at the time of activation, the same staging table will be used to store your active record. That is what it's a flex. Flex means your the same staging table is flexible enough to store your inactive record. After activation, it will store your active record. That inactive record will turn into active. That's it.
Means only indicator change from 0 to 1, right?
Yes, it will, indicator will change it to 0 to 1, but during that process, it will do some validations, checks everything, and finally, then only if all the things met, then only it will turn into 1. That process we call it as an activation process.
Okay. And for reuse area, that indicator will always be 0, right? Because
Yes, it always 0. It always 0. You never see any with a 1 over there in staging, because at the time of it, when it is becoming active record, right? That record anyway will be moved over here automatically.
Okay, that record will not be in staging area.
Yes, it won't be available in your staging area. So if you know this particular difference, if you understand this, SAP, you have created your Material Master Data Model, BP Data Model using this reuse area technique. That means if you are creating materials or business partners, customers, vendors, even your article master or EAM object that I told, plant maintenance module, right? Equipment, functional location, these things. So all these 4 masters are designed in such a way that it always follows a reuse approach. You never ever you make this as a flex mode. These 4 objects are designed in such a way that it will be always reuse technique. It will always uses the reuse technique. Okay. The only object that follows this flex is finance object. Finance object. So this finance object follows this flex mode. And when you are creating your custom objects like plant master or anything, it's up to you whether you wanted to design your custom object to follow flex or reuse. Okay, I'll explain why finance object designed in such a way finance flex. Okay, reuse anyway. It makes sense for us to have a reuse, because in any thing, right? Usually you will use this temporary area for storing your record temporarily, and ultimately you need the data over here. Okay, so it makes sense to make use of this one. But why finance, instead of following the reuse, they use the flex mode? That we will discuss. I'll explain that use case tomorrow. So tomorrow we will just start with this the reason why finance object is designed in a flex mode. After that, we can directly start with the data in the system, how we can create a custom data model, staging tables and everything. So I'll stop here for today, and if you have any questions, we can discuss. So is this clear? Whatever we discussed till today, I mean, so far this basics everything.
We will have recording of these sessions. Akshay.
Regarding, I'll ask the support team to load it, upload over there in LMS. So maybe you can just talk to after this, Nitin from I think the support team will they will take you through how you can actually access that SharePoint everything, where you can see the video recordings and everything. Okay, so there you can actually you can ask them to make it this record available as early as possible.
Okay, thanks, Akshay.
Okay, so any questions from anyone? If no questions, I'll just invite the support team so that he will take you through that SharePoint access.
Sure.
So you all are with me, right? So you are able to follow me this question, this whatever we discussed today. Feel free to let me know if I need to, if I'm going too fast, a kind of thing.
No, Shah, as of now, like we are good. Like we understand the concepts as it's a basic. So yeah, we are good.
Great. Okay.
Also, Akshay, that Excel you are showing right in the, can you share that also?
Yeah, I will share that one maybe after a certain time because I'll be using this for our the daily running thing, right? So towards end of the course, I will share this Excel as well.
Sure, thanks.
Yep. Thank you all.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.